today I'm going to be speaking about two things: pipeline management and focus. So as I just mentioned, this would be a great time to mute yourself unless you're the one speaking. And I can't see the chat when I'm doing this. So if you have questions, I won't be able to see if you raise your hand. Just put your questions in the chat and either Beth or Ellen can wave at me because I can see the two of you. So the first thing I want you to be aware of is that what we choose to focus on dramatically affects our ability to earn income and how much we're going to make. And most of us are pretty unfocused. This is not an accusation against any of you. I'm raising my hand too. It's very, very easy to lose focus, but the more focused we are, the greater the likelihood of speaking to the people that we want to speak with, helping them choose to become our customers and make more money. It is inherent inside of us as human beings to tend to focus on the things that either we enjoy doing or that we're very good at. In fact, in the book, Leverage Your Laziness, the authors say exactly that you will be more successful and happier if you focus on the things that you're good at and enjoy doing and find somebody else to do the things that you don't enjoy doing or suck at. I happen to know the authors because I'm one of them, so I love quoting myself. The reality is that sometimes, maybe even often, what we're good at doing or what we like doing is not necessarily what's going to bring us money. And the reason that most of us are in business, most of us are in ABA, most of us do all the things that we do each day is because we're there to make some money so that we can take care of ourselves, our families, help the world grow, and do all those things. So the question becomes, what do you focus on? And we're going to take a 2-minute, and I mean really 2-minute breakout. And what I'd like is for the person in the room, Beth, if we could put them into rooms of 4, the person with the longest hair, you get to call on everybody else, you go last. So you really only have 30 seconds each to discuss what do you tend to focus on a daily basis. Person with the longest hair, you're the facilitator, 30 seconds each.
Really?
Beth,
You had to go by hair size, Jeff?
you're probably going to go last, Omid.
Jeff, how long do you want it?
2 minutes. See you in 2 minutes, everyone. What do you tend to focus on?
There they go. Whee. Some people, it just they never go. Maybe they don't see the pop-up that tells them they're going. Or they stepped away. That could be a possibility too.
Yeah. How many rooms?
16.
I think it's so funny who ends up with who.
And it's random.
Yeah.
And how it does weird things, like it has rooms with 2 people. Zoom can't do math.
Yeah, it's not perfect.
Nope.
With a lot of people.
Sometimes you can plan the rooms ahead of time, but then if the people aren't there.
That's why I don't think it's worth it. I think that it creates more confusion. Where did Jeff go? He went in the room.
Want me to take them out?
No, that's all right.
Okay. We could have made him a co-host, then he wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
On their way back.
All right.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I got kicked out of Zoom for some reason, so I just came back on.
That happened to me yesterday. I had to restart my router twice. Who knows?
Yeah, it kicked out twice and then it totally kicked me out, so I just had to rejoin.
And hello, I apologize if I literally, something just popped with the client. I just had to put up my screen and deal with that. And I'm back. So hello, everybody. I don't know if there were people talking and what the subject was, but hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here.
Hi.
You go from room to room.
Nice to see you again, Steve.
Oh, yes. Good to see you. Good to see
Jeff,
everybody.
we're back.
Hey, Steve.
Beth, could you maybe call on 3 or 4 people, just to ask what they focus on a daily basis?
Aaron, what do you focus on a day? Oh, wait, is he here? Yes. Aaron, what do you focus on a daily basis?
One of the things I said is if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't get done. So I try to schedule as much as I possibly can with some flexibility in there.
That's a great point. I was saying in our breakout room, your every day should end by you calendarizing the next day. You should have every minute filled up the next day so that you can walk in, be immediately productive, and that you don't waste time after every task going, well, what should I do next? Because every time you do that, you're probably going to waste 5 to 10 minutes just figuring out what to do next. And there's a great likelihood that you will not be figuring out the thing that's most likely to result in money in your pocket. Who else, Beth?
Well,
Me.
can I just respond to that?
Sure.
I'm sorry. I don't agree with that. I think it's good in principle, but I don't think my calendar is like everybody's, filled minute to minute. And literally just now is a perfect example. I didn't plan to have an issue with a client that just popped. And so I had to deal with that. And so I feel you got to have some room and adjust and have the ability to adjust. That's the only thing I'm saying. If you're too rigid, then that leads to unproductive, not being productive as well. That's just my view.
No, you're absolutely right. So yes, to not to belabor the point, but yes, there must be flexibility because some things do take precedence. But here's the thing. Salespeople tend to think everything's an emergency. It's not. Not everything has to be done immediately. And the more you calendarize, the more you set up your day, the less likely you're going to be wasting time. I'll just give you one more quick tip so that we can move on. You also want to assign the right amount of time to each event. For example, for me, it takes 20 minutes to write a proposal. My calendar defaults to an hour. If I write a proposal and put it on there for an hour, I'm going to fill up that hour with writing that proposal. But I know if I focus and do it quickly, I can get it done in 20 minutes. So you're 100% right, Stephen. You do have to be flexible because sometimes things do have to move around. I'm with you.
Jeff, I just want to point out another quote. One of the symptoms.
Hey, did a guy David reach out to you? Somebody, George from Carter DeLuca, gave you a referral?
Who are you speaking to?
Okay, we don't know. But I just want to share this quote because of what Jeff just said. One of the symptoms of an approaching nervousness is the belief that one's work is terribly important. Bertrand Russell. Not everything is important.
That's for sure. How about one more, Beth?
Omid.
Hey, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. On a daily basis, I think Steve's got it right. I think, we try to schedule the next day with work, and all these things pop up that are very, very important, but not necessarily. So one of the things I found is very important is actually having little breaks between the things. And it's okay. It's okay to get disturbed or get distracted because you'll come back to it. And so at the end of every day, I go through the to-do list that's longer than it was that morning and try to sort of get back on top of things.
Yeah. So I suggest it's not okay to get distracted unless it's something more important than what you've already put on your calendar. Because if you're getting distracted, you are not focusing and you're not getting as much accomplished. And that's why your to-do list keeps growing. What we want is your to-do list to keep shrinking. And I promise you calendarization will help that. So let's move on. But thank you both for sharing. So There we go. So our tendency as human beings is to focus on SOS, or shiny object syndrome. What's the next thing that's going to do it for us? There's a movie called Up, which my kids and I adore. And in it, there's a talking dog. He can actually talk because of a little collar that translates his voice into human. And he's talking to the stars of the movie, supposedly. And at one point he goes, squirrel. And that's kind of who we are. Fundraising in space. Oh, let's focus on that. When if we focus on the fundamentals, we focus on what's more likely to bring us income, then we are more likely to be successful. Most of you probably know there are 3 types of learners: visual, audio, and kinesthetic. I happen to be a visual. Actually, we're all 3, but we all have a dominant one. I'm a visual learner. I learn by seeing. And I use signs for myself. And I have a sign that asks me, am I doing the thing at this moment that's most likely to result in income? Am I doing the thing at this moment that's most likely to result in income? Shiny object syndrome is not most likely to result in income, because I'm interested in generating revenue when I'm working. I need to produce income. Some of you know I have 3 children in college. Daddy still needs to work. We also tend to do stuff that avoids rejection. Like if you can see in this sample email I wrote to Ellen as if I was trying to sell her something. Ellen, I'm writing to follow up on the proposal I emailed you last week, blah, 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 which, by the way, if that's the email you're sending, that's exactly what it sounds like to your prospect. I'm writing to follow up on the proposal, blah, blah, blah. What that really means, and it's the same thing in a voicemail, it means, did you decide to do business with me, but forget to let me know? Email avoids rejection for the most part because most people don't answer them. Picking up the phone and actually speaking to somebody, that's a little bit harder. So we want to make sure that we're not doing activities just to avoid rejection. Social media, which I happen to love, cover your ears, Beth, because I don't want to piss you off. But, for many of us, it's just a time suck. Now, if you're using it strategically and intelligently to develop business, all of these things can be terrific. I'm not positive about TikTok, but the rest of them certainly can be. But I want to make sure that we're focusing on things, not just because they don't hurt our feelings. Where should our focus be? What I call RGAs. We need to focus as often as we possibly can on revenue generating activities. And the reason is time certainly is money. Ask any lawyer, ask Omid if time is money. It is. Ask me, time is money. I sell 2 things, my time and my intellectual property. I can never get time back. And that's something that most people do not seem to understand. You can almost always get your health back. Not always, but almost always get your health back. You can just about always make more money. But the one thing we cannot do is get back time. The 27 minutes that we've spent together so far will never come back to us. So hopefully this turns out to be profitable for each and every one of us. But if not, we spent time instead of investing it. So when we're selling, when we're in our businesses, need to focus on revenue generating activities as often as we possibly can. In a CSO Insights study, and CSO Insights is an organization that studies sales, most salespeople invest less than 1/3 of their time to actually selling. They're doing all kinds of other things. And a lot of those things are not necessarily things they need to be doing at that moment. One of the things that is incredibly useful is to track your time. With my coaching clients, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a sales coach and trainer. I should have said that at the beginning. I work with both individuals and organizations to help them get measurable and sustainable sales increases. And most salespeople are not focused on revenue generating activities most of the time. They're very busy doing other stuff that keeps them busy, but not productive. And there's a big difference between being busy and being productive. It's incredibly hard to be productive without being busy, but you can very easily be unproductive while still being very busy. So what are some of the things that I think are revenue generating activities when you're selling? Going on appointments is certainly a revenue generating activity, whether you're doing it over the phone, via Zoom, or we're starting to do it face to face again. If you're gathering more information from a prospect, that's a revenue generating activity. If you're moving a deal forward in your pipeline closer to close because of some activity that you're doing, it's getting closer to close, that's an RGA. Finding other contacts to speak to in an organization that might help you close a deal, that's an RGA. And of course, the biggest RGA is always closing business. And this is not an exhaustive list. Here are some of the things that are not necessarily revenue generating activities. Endless meetings with no point. Most meetings inside sales organizations are useless. They're a waste of time. They are egocentric. I suggest get rid of all meetings that you possibly can. I'm not saying get rid of all meetings. Some meetings are crucial, but too many people are conducting meetings when they don't know how to. They don't know how to move things along, and they're doing it just for vanity. Paperwork, a lot of organizations have all kinds of paperwork that's just not important. I'm not saying paperwork's not important. The process is not important, but a lot of stuff is just wasted time. And wasting time in general is not an RGA. Don't get me wrong. We all need that break that Stephen was talking about earlier. In fact, there's a terrific book called The Power of Full Engagement that says if you want to be more successful in business, build breaks into your day. And the author suggests that you need a break mentally and physically every 90 to 120 minutes. Not an hour break every 90 to 120 minutes, but a 5 to 10 minute break that you will actually be more productive when you build little breaks into your day. The other thing that's totally not a revenue generating activity is trying to close deals that are almost definitely not going to close. And there's a challenge for those of us who sell. In order to do our jobs effectively, we have to be optimists because for most of us, we hear no way more than we hear yes. We get bombarded all day, every day with people who are rejecting us, telling us no. Look, I'm so good at selling that I get paid to teach other people how to sell. But still, way more than 50% of the people I first meet with say no to me. The key is, how do we figure out who should I actually be focusing my time and attention on, and who is a waste of my time? And there's a program called Pipeline Management, which would be really cool if we had a program on that. Oh, wait a minute, it's coming in just a few minutes, which I promise you, if you use it, will help you to focus on deals that are more likely to close and have you waste less time on deals that are just jerking you around. So there are two key concepts which I speak to my coaching clients all the time: focus and velocity. And they mean exactly what they sound like. When I say focus, I can't see most of you. I can only see like 6 of you on the side here, so I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. But I'm betting if I asked all of you, how many of you are good multitaskers, I'm betting that the vast majority of you would raise your hand. And here's the answer I'll give you all. No, you're not. You're just not. You think you're a good multitasker, but you're actually not. In fact, it's been proven scientifically in the laboratory. Your brain and mine can only focus on one thing at any given nanosecond. You cannot possibly focus. It's just physically impossible. Your brain can't do it. So when you try to multitask, to do 2 or more things at one time, what happens is your brain is constantly flipping back and forth to the 2 or 3 or 5 different things that you're trying to do. And all of them suffer instead of focusing on one thing at a time. I was actually driving to Jersey this past Tuesday to conduct a sales meeting for a new client. And I was talking on the phone at the same time. I came this close to missing my exit. I'd only been there once before, so I wasn't that familiar with the path, except I'd been on the way to people's homes who I've been to a million times, talking on the phone, hands-free, of course, blast right by my exit. Multitasking is a myth. The one I figured out that I can do, I can fly on a plane and sleep at the same time. That's multitasking to me. So my coaching for you guys is when you are working, one thing at a time. Focus on one thing with full attention. Make it a very Zen moment. You're completely keyed in on one thing at a time. And when you're done with that, now move on to the next thing. Multitasking just is not going to do it for you, no matter how much you think it will. Then the second concept is velocity, and that means speed. Most of us, when we're at work, do not work as if our lives depended on it, especially those of us who own our own businesses, solopreneurs or small entrepreneurs. The coaching I have for any of you in that situation is act as if you had a boss, and your boss has told you, if you don't get this done by Friday, you're losing your job. Now, today's Friday, so some of you may be losing your jobs today. Most of us are not working with full speed. And I urge each and every one of you, work as quickly as you possibly can on every single task you're doing without making mistakes. So that means not working carelessly because you're going so fast, but working as quickly as you possibly can without screwing up. There's a concept in carpentry. It's called measure twice and cut once. And what that simply means is when you're cutting a piece of wood, maybe to frame a window or something like that, you want to measure twice, because if you measure once, cut the piece of wood and take it over to the window and find out, oh, I screwed up, I didn't measure correctly, now you've wasted a piece of wood. So measure twice and cut once. It's the same concept here. I want you to measure twice and cut once, but I want you to measure as quickly as you possibly can with complete focus so that you don't saw off your fingers while you're doing it. Focus and velocity, two key concepts, which if you just do those, if you take those away today, your time was well invested. So now the question becomes, if we're talking about focus, how do we focus on the right deals? Most of us are not working on just one deal at a time. Typically, we're juggling several deals and sometimes a lot of deals at the same time. So the question becomes, how do we know which deals should we be focusing on? Because everybody seems initially pretty interested, but I'm guessing that some of you, like me, have had people who seem so interested in what we've got to offer them, but they stop returning your phone calls and they stop returning your emails. We call that going dark or ghosting. My kids taught me ghosting, so it's the same thing. So how do we figure out a way to focus on the right deals, the deals that are more likely to close, the deals that are more likely to put income in our pockets? And we use pipeline management for that. So the sales pipeline is not like these two pipelines. You've got, what looks like an oil or gas pipeline on the left side of your screen, and that's actually the Bonsai pipeline in Hawaii, which, even though I live by an ocean, I suck at surfing, so you'd never see me doing that, even though in my head, I'm doing that when I'm body surfing. But the sales pipeline is something different. We have to understand that prospects do use a lot of words and methods to say no, and successful sellers minimize the amount of time that they spend with prospects who are not real prospects. So we have to figure out a methodology for knowing who's a real prospect and who is not. And pipeline management looks like this. I'm actually going to show you this again later, but this is what I'm talking about when I say pipeline management. So I'm going to explain this system to you. And if any of you like this and want this, this is just a spreadsheet, which I'm happy to send to any of you. So when we're done today, if anybody's interested in that, you can either email Ellen or email me directly. I'm happy to send this to you for your use at any time. I'll explain to you how it works. Sales is a progression towards closure. On the left side of the screen, we've got 0%, which means that's a suspect, a lead, somebody that we'd like to be putting into our process at some point. And on the right side, sales goes to 100%. That's what we in sales call closed, happy customers, new clients. So we have to figure out how to define the likelihood of closure of any prospect at a particular time during the sales process. And the key definition for how we use this system is, how do we define when somebody has a 50% chance of closing? So there are several criteria necessary to say that someone has a 50% chance of closing. And the first one is you're presenting to the right person or the right people. Now, in my not very humble opinion, when it comes to selling, there's only one right person or one right set of people, and that is a decision maker or the decision makers. If you're presenting to anybody other than a decision maker, we cannot say that a deal has a 50% chance of closing. It's not that you're a bad person. It's not that they're bad people. And I'm well aware that in many circumstances, you cannot get to the right person. My personal belief, because I can do whatever I want in my business because I own it, is I don't talk to anybody who's not the right person. I simply won't waste my time with that. And to me, the right person is always somebody who can sign a contract or a check. If you can't sign a contract or a check, I'm not interested in speaking with you. Not that you're not a nice person, and it's not that I'm not a nice person, but I'm here to do business. So you want to make sure you're speaking to the right person, and that's a decision maker. There's one exception to that, and that would be what I call an influencer. If you're speaking to an influencer, and I'm going to give you the definition of an influencer in a moment, then you can still say a deal has a 50% chance of closing. An influencer in my world is somebody who can get a positive decision made every single time, even though they can't physically sign the contract or the check. So a perfect example of that would be one of my very first customers when I opened up my business was Optimum Light Path, at the time a division of Cablevision. Phil DeCabia was the senior vice president of sales, and he could sign checks and sign contracts. But my main contact there, Jerry Filomio, was a VP of sales who worked under Phil. Now, even though he could not sign checks or contracts, every time Jerry would go to Phil and say, hey, I want to use Goldberg for fill in the blank, Phil went, yeah, okay, let's do it. So in essence, he was the decision maker, even though he could not sign checks. So you want to make sure you're presenting to the right person or people, a decision maker or an influencer, or else it doesn't belong in the 50% area. And you have to have gained some information, some correct, good information from that person. Second thing is you have to be presenting the right proposal or the right solution to them. If you're not presenting the right proposal to somebody, you can't say it has a 50% chance of closing. And the question usually comes up when I train salespeople to use this system. Well, Jeff, how do you know if you're presenting the right proposal? There's a very simple way. Your prospect has told you. In other words, you can't say a deal has a 50-50 chance of closing unless they've seen your proposal and given you some indication, yeah, you're on the right track, or yeah, you're close, or yeah, that's exactly what I want. It doesn't have to be perfect, but they've got to give you some indication that they're liking what they're seeing and you're on the right track. You may need to tweak some stuff, but as long as they're nodding the head and saying, yeah, this is what I'm looking for, baby, that's the second of the 50% criteria. The third one is you've got to be talking about the right price. Now, once again, how do you know if the price is right? Well, anytime I write a proposal and put in pricing, I think the price is right because that's money that's going to go into my pocket if I close the deal. But the only way I really know the price is right is because I've discussed the price with my client, my prospect, and they've said, yeah, that sounds right to me. Now, if it's way off, then it can't possibly have a 50% of chance of closing. So if I'm trying to sell my services to Denise Angiulo, and I say, hey, Denise, in this particular consulting engagement, you're looking at $60,000. And if Denise goes, oh, Jesus, my standard joke is always too low. And Denise, who I can see is laughing right now, she's probably going to say, no, too high, in which case my question is, how too high am I? And if I say 60,000, Denise says, I was thinking 20,000. There's no play between 20,000 and 60,000. It's not even close. So she's not the right, that deal can't have a 50% chance of closing. If, however, Denise said, I was thinking something in the 47 to 48,000 range, not even close enough there. But if she said somewhere about 55, 57, I could probably do, Jeff. That's close enough because I know I can either take something out of my proposal to bring it down to that range or show her a little more value so that she goes, you know what, I'll find that extra $5,000. If the prospect has not indicated that your pricing is at least close to what they're willing to pay, then it can't have a 50% chance of closing. The next thing is you've got to have an agreed upon time when the prospect is going to give you their decision. If they say something like, yeah, I'd like to think this over, call me next month, that deal does not have a 50% chance of closing according to the pipeline management system. It may in the real world have one, but I'm not interested in the real world. I'm interested in the pipeline management system because it takes away all BS. It takes away all the ways we fool ourselves. So if the prospect says, I'll give you an answer by next Tuesday, that's one of the 50% criteria. We can still say if we're presenting to the right person with the right proposal and the right price, and they've said they'll give us an answer by next Tuesday or whenever they say they will, then that's still the 50% criteria. Finally, the sale has to be occurring within your average sales cycle. So every sale has an average sales cycle, an average amount of time that it takes to close the deal. Now, different products or services that you sell may have a different time frame. Different people in an organization will have a different average sales cycle, but it's crucial that you figure out what your average sales cycle is. And I'll give you an example. I sell 4 services. One of them is sales training. In selling sales training, my average sales cycle is 8 weeks. Now, I've had deals that have closed on the first day, a handful. That's very unusual. I had one deal that took me 4.5 years to close, also very unusual. But I know because I track it, my average sales cycle for selling sales training, just that one product, that one service, is 8 weeks. Now, here's why that's important to know. Anything that exceeds your average sales cycle has a statistically lower chance of closing. So you've probably caught on by now, I speak quickly. It's just who I am. I often start out speeches with, I talk quick, I can't slow down, you got to listen quick. But if you noticed I slowed down there, that's because that's a crucial concept to understand. Anything that exceeds your average sales cycle has a statistically lower chance of closing. So in my world, anything within an 8-week sale, within that first 8 weeks, has a decent chance of closing. But when we get to 8 weeks in one day, it does not look as good as it did the day before. 9 weeks is worse than 8, 10 weeks is worse than 9, 40 weeks is worse than 10. Doesn't mean that after 40 weeks, you and I won't choose to do business. It just means it's less likely that we're going to do business. And if I'm going to focus my time effectively, and I strive to do that every second of every day, not always successful, but I sure try to because I can't get my time back, then I need to be focusing on the deals which are more likely to close and give less time and attention to the deals that are less likely to close. So I'm going to put way more time and attention on somebody who's within my 8-week sales cycle and way less time and attention on somebody who's at 40 weeks. That doesn't mean I'm never going to contact them, call them, email them, reach out on LinkedIn, but they're going to get way less attention than somebody who's within that 8 weeks. So part of the 50% criteria, presenting to the right person, a decision maker, the right proposal, the right price. We have an agreed upon date when you're going to give me a decision, and the sale is happening within my average sales cycle. And finally, you have to have a best next action step. This, my friends, for those of you who don't know me, because I've said this a million times, this is the most important concept that I teach salespeople. Of all the things I teach, of all the salespeople that come up to me before I do a speaking engagement, say, I love training. If I learn one thing, this was a useful day. Well, personally, I don't feel it was. My standard line is, if you only learn one thing from being with me, you got ripped off and you shouldn't pay me. I'm just kidding, still pay me, but I promise you're going to learn more than one thing. However, if salespeople only learn one thing from me, and if you only take away one thing today, this is the one I want you to take away. It's the best next action step philosophy. And it simply means this: never leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there, period. I'm going to repeat that one. Never, ever leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there. And here's why. The way the typical salesperson ends a sales meeting sounds like this. So I can see Bob Middleman. So let's say I'm trying to sell Bob training services. The way typical salespeople will end it sounds like this. Hey, Bob, this has been a great meeting today. I really appreciate the exchange of information that we've given. And here's what I think we should do. I'd like to go back to my office. I want to think about everything we've talked about. I'd like to put some ideas down on paper on how we can increase sales at Middleman Co. And as soon as I've got those ideas written down, I'll give you another call. We'll set up another meeting. I'll come back and show you my proposal. And that way, you'll have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision whenever you're ready. How does that sound to you? You don't have to answer, Bob, because I promise you the Bob answer is going to be this. Sounds good, Jeff. But the thing is, what did Bob agree to without actually saying it in this example? Well, he agreed to one thing and one thing only. It's okay with him if I go back to my office, invest a bunch of time in writing up a proposal, and then I can try to call him. He didn't say he'd take my call. He didn't say, what if I got him on the phone that he'd give me the meeting that I want. He just said, oh yeah, you want to go back and write a proposal and call me? Be my guest, my friend. So that's the way the typical salesperson does it. Here's what I'm suggesting you should be doing. Hey, Bob, this has been a great meeting. Really appreciate the exchange of information, and I've got some terrific ideas already, but here's what I think we should do. I want to go back to my office, think about everything we talked about, talk to my creative team, and put together an outline of ideas on how we can increase sales at Middleman Co. And I'd like to come back and show you that outline of ideas next Tuesday at 3:00. Does that work for you? Now, if Bob says yes to that, I know one thing for certain. Bob's interested. And the reason I know he's interested is because Bob, a busy executive who already gave me some of his valuable time for a first meeting, has now agreed to give me more of his valuable time for a second meeting. And he would not be doing that unless he was interested in hearing what I have to say. He may not end up doing business with me, but he's interested. And that's who I'm going to focus my time and attention on. Interested prospects, not prospects who say, yeah, just email me the proposal, or give me a call next month, give me a call next quarter, give me a call next year, give me a call when hell freezes over, which is what most of them are really saying. Now, let's do one more example here. Let's say Bob is interested, but I'm the typical salesperson, and I ended the first way I told you. Hey, Bob, you gave me a lot of great information. I'm going to go back to my office, think about everything we talked about, put together an outline of ideas. I'll give you a call. We'll set up another meeting. I'll come back and show it to you. That way, you'll have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision whenever you're ready. How does that sound to you? And Bob says, sounds good. Now, remember, in this case, Bob is interested. What do? I go back to my office, and I write up the greatest proposal of my lifetime, because I want to impress the heck out of Bob and show him what I'm going to do for him. Once I've finished that proposal, what do I do next? I call Bob because I want to arrange that next meeting. Do I get Bob Middleman on the first call? Well, it's pretty unlikely that he's sitting at his desk, staring at his phone, hoping that his caller ID pops up with Jeff Goldberg because he can't wait to hear my proposal. Most likely he's facilitating an ABA network, running his other business, doing 8 million other things. But what am I going to do? I'm going to leave him a voicemail because I want to connect with Bob so I can get that appointment and show him my proposal. I leave him a voicemail. Hey, Bob, it's Jeff Goldberg. Got that proposal ready. Give me a call back whenever you have a chance. Bob is interested. So what does Bob do? He calls me back. Does Bob get me? Well, not if he calls between 12 and 2 today, because I'm not going to take a phone call while I'm speaking to you guys. And half the time I'm on coaching calls with clients. I'm at a client site managing or training. So it's likely that Bob and I, two busy executives, are going to trade several phone calls back and forth because we're both interested here. Leaving each other voice. Well, hey, yeah, we're playing phone tag. Eventually we're going to get one. I'll speak to you soon. Give me a call back. Let me know when I should call you. Leaving messages back and forth. But eventually one of us gets the other one on the phone. And it sounds like this. Hey, Bob, are you sitting down? No? Well, sit down and buckle your seatbelt because the proposal I put together for you is going to rocket you right out of your chair. Can I come by this afternoon and show it to you? Which I would never say in a million years. Even if I had nothing to do that afternoon, zero to do, I would still not tell Bob I'm going to come by that afternoon because successful people are busy. They can't drop everything to go show a proposal. So in all likelihood, two busy executives like Bob Middleman and me are going to probably meet at least a week, maybe 2, 3, or 4 weeks before we can coordinate our calendars to get together to show him this proposal, which hopefully is going to result in him choosing to do business with me. But if I'm on the phone or on a Zoom call or in his office and just set up the next meeting while I'm sitting there, I'm going to save probably 1 to 3 weeks off my sales cycle each and every time. I believe that every time you do the best next action step philosophy, you're going to save 1 to 3 weeks off your sales cycle, and you're making sure that you're working with interested prospects. So those all together make the 50% criteria. You're talking to a decision maker, you're presenting the right proposal, you've talked about pricing, and they've given you an indication that it's right. They've given you a time when they will make a decision by, the sales occurring within your average sales cycle, and you have a next step. All the other definitions go much quicker. So 50% is the right person with the right proposal, the right price, a decision date within the sales cycle. You've got a best next action step. 90%. That means it has a 90% chance of closing. You put something in the 90% column on your pipeline management board. We call it the board. When you have a COD, a contract on desk. Now, it may not be an actual contract if you don't work with one, but you're at the stage where if you were working with a contract, they would have it on their desk. They have given you a verbal agreement. They've nodded their head, shook your hand, or maybe given you a high elbow in the days of COVID and said, yep, we're doing this one. It's possible that they have to let the legal department look at it, or maybe the president of the company has to sign off. But they've given you a verbal agreement that they will do business with you. And you only put something in the 90% column if you're willing to BYP, bet your paycheck that the deal is going to close. And when I work with salespeople and they put something in the 90% column and I say, would you bet your paycheck on it, your actual paycheck? If they say no, it doesn't belong in the 90% column. Not like a good or bad thing, by the way, not like a right or wrong thing. It just doesn't belong at 90%. First appointment column, that's exactly what it sounds like. That's where you put your appointments on this sheet. You put all your appointments on with the date of the appointment so that you can know, do I have enough first appointments at all times? This is one of the most crucial things as a sales coach and a outsourced sales manager that I look at. Do the salespeople that I'm working with have enough first appointments? It's not rocket science. It's based on your closing ratio. So let's say Bob, I mean, I'm sure his is way better, but Bob has a 25% chance of closing in any given instance. He has a 25% closing ratio. And let's say Bob has to close 4 deals this month. Well, if you do the math, that means that Bob, who needs to close 4 deals and has a 25% closing rate, he's got to have 16 first appointments at all times. Otherwise, somewhere down the line, he's not going to close enough business. So by looking on a pipeline management board, a pipeline management spreadsheet, like I showed you a few minutes ago, as a manager, I can look at it, or as a salesperson, you can look at it at all times and go, oh, I don't have 16 first appointments. I better focus on getting some more because there's no way I can close enough business without enough first appointments. The 25% column is a holding pattern between first appointment and 50%. It means you've met with somebody or at least had 1 or 2 substantial phone conversations where information's been exchanged, but 1 or more of the 50% criteria are missing. In that case, it goes into the 25% column, and we say it has a 1 in 4 chance of closing. And then the final column is all the way to the left, and that's called fallback. That one has a 0% chance of closing. So we talked about the best next action step philosophy, always getting a best next action step, an agreed upon time and date to get together again in some way, shape, or form to discuss doing business together. If at any time during the sales process you cannot get a best next action step, it moves to the fallback column all the way on the left. Now, here's the thing about the fallback column. Salespeople tend to think that the fallback column is bad. It's purgatory. It's something you don't want. And of course, we want things to be in the active columns, the 25, 50, or 90%. But the best salespeople almost always have a full fallback column with lots and lots of opportunities where, for whatever reason, they simply could not get a best next action step. And the perfect example is my first deal that I worked on when I went to work in the sales training business. I was working for a company before I opened up my own. And the very first deal I worked on was with Long Island Commercial Bank, since out of business. I met with Mel Vizzini, the VP of, I think commercial lending was his title, but he actually handled the branches too. I met with Mel 3 times. And at the end of the 3 times, Mel said, let's move forward. We shook hands. I got a verbal agreement on it. I was actually up at the door ready to leave. And he said, oh, there's just one more thing. And I turned around and looked at him and said, yes. And he said, I just need to introduce you to Doug Mandich. And in my head, I went, uh-oh, who's Doug Mandich? And I actually said to Mel, I said, who's Doug Mandich? And he goes, oh, well, he's the president of the bank. I said, oh, and inside I had a sinking feeling because I saw my deal that I thought was almost closed sinking away. I said, okay, I'd be happy to meet with Doug. I just need to ask you a question. Is this a seal of approval meeting or is this a I'm starting from scratch meeting? And Mel, to my pleasure, said, oh, it's just a seal of approval meeting. I said, okay, I just have one more question. Is this a seal of approval meeting or am I starting from scratch? And he looked at me weird, like people do quite often. He goes, you just asked me that question. I said, yeah, but I feel bad that I didn't know that there is a president of the bank that I was going to need to talk to. So I'm just making sure. And he looked at me with a laugh on his face and he said, Jeff, we've never, ever done sales training in our company. You're asking us for $40,000. We've never spent a penny on this. The president of the bank would like to meet you and make sure you don't have 2 heads. I know I don't have 2 heads. In those days, I used to dress reasonably well. I speak reasonably well. I'd already gotten a verbal agreement from the VP, so I felt pretty confident about that. And he walked me down the hall to Doug Manich's assistant to set up an appointment to meet with Doug the following week. I don't do a good British accent, and she was British, so I'm not going to even try. But I met her. Mel told the assistant that she should schedule an appointment for me with Doug to show him this sales training outline the following week. And we set up an appointment for the following Thursday. This was a Friday, by the way. I went, by the way, I'd like you to think in your head right now, when I got home after that meeting, where did I put that on my pipeline management board? I'm gonna be quiet for like 10 seconds so you can think, where would it go? Would that be a 25% deal, a 50% deal, or a 90% deal?
You can put that in the chat.
I can't see it, but go ahead.
All right, it's going. 50, there's 25, 25, 50, 50, 50. Anybody else? Uh-oh, somebody said 0.
0% chance of closing. Got it. Okay, so it sounds like we had a lot of 50s and a couple of 25s. So remember, I met with the VP. He gave me a verbal agreement. I was ready to bet my paycheck because he told me I was just needing a seal of approval from the president who I was meeting with the next week. I put it at 90%. In fact, I went home and told my wife, well, now ex-wife, Jackie, I said, honey, I'm just about to close my first deal at this new job and it's going to be a big one. And of course, her question was, how much does that put in our pocket? And I told her, and I kid you not, it was a Friday. On Saturday, she went out and bought a $300 pair of Gucci loafers because she loved expensive shoes. So here's the point of the story.
Diane Caputi said that she was at the training, so she knows you got it.
She absolutely was. And she knows Doug Manich and she knows Mel Vizzini. So I put it at 90% because I was willing to bet my paycheck that this deal was going to close. On Monday, I got a call from Doug Manich's assistant who said, you're supposed to meet with, I'm sorry, I was supposed to meet with him on Tuesday, not Thursday. My apologies. I thought she was calling to confirm the appointment, but instead what she said was, you're supposed to meet with Mr. Mandich tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Is that right? I said, yes, I can't wait to meet him. She goes, well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I've got to cancel the meeting. And I, of course, said, may I ask why? And she said, yes, the chairman of the board of the bank died over the weekend. To which my response was, so? No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't so. It was, where's the funeral? I'll meet him there. No, I didn't do that either. Of course, when you hear something like that, your brain starts spinning. And the only thing I could think of at that moment was, well, please tell Mr. Mandich, I'm very sorry to hear that. Because in my mind, I'm thinking this could be the person that hired him and gave him his job. Please tell him I'm very sorry to hear that. And if I haven't heard from you in 2 or 3 weeks, I'll reach out again to reschedule. Would that be okay with you? And she said that would be fine. And I hung up, and inside my head, the music was playing, wah, 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 wah. And I was thinking about the $300 pair of shoes that my wife had bought over the weekend. At that point, it went from 90% to 0%, because at that moment, even though I still felt strongly the deal would close, at that moment, it had a 0% chance of closing. Now, the thing about the fallback column is every day you want to look at it, look at all the deals that are in your fallback column and simply ask yourself this question. Is there anything I can do right now to bring this back to one of the active columns, the 25, 50, or 90% column? If the answer is yes, then you do that thing. You write the letter, you send the email, the text, make the call, drop in, whatever it is you have to do. If not, you simply leave it there as a reminder that you need to get this back to one of the active columns. Now, here's what actually happened. I was going to wait 2 or 3 weeks, but I didn't have to. 10 days later, I got a call from Doug Manich's assistant saying, Doug says to thank you very much for your patience. He really appreciates it and wants to know if you could meet with him this Thursday. I looked at my calendar, which was completely empty. I had nothing to do because I was just starting out my career at this company. But I said to her, because successful people are busy, well, I'm going to have to move a few things around, but don't wait. Tell Mr. Mandich I'll be there. I'll move a few things around and I will absolutely be there. And we hung up the phone and I went, woohoo, back on track. Went right back to 90%. Now, here's the great news about this one. I did meet with Doug Mandich. He not only liked what I had to show them, but I showed him, Mel was interested in conversational selling skills, which is the sales process. He was also interested in professional prospecting. How do you get new prospects? But he was not interested in what I showed you, what I'm showing you right now, the pipeline management. But when I showed that one to Doug Mandich, he goes, oh, we got to have this too. So I ended up walking away with a closed deal and a bigger deal than I had expected. So we always want to make sure that fallback doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's just an accurate thing. Now, sometimes we identify a contact as a prospect, but we don't have a best next action step in place with that person. And in that case, they're not a prospect. Not at that moment, they're a suspect. I differentiate between the two. A prospect is only a prospect if you've met them at least once or had 1 or 2 substantial conversations over the phone and have given valid information. You're moving forward through the sales process and you have a definite best next action step with a specific time and date to do something that's going to move the sale forward towards close. And that means the person is actively involved in trying to help you do business with them. The best next action step, I promise you, this is a money maker. So this is what it looks like when your board, your pipeline management board, looks great. It looks like a triangle on its side. In fact, I think, no, okay. There's a lot of stuff at fallback, a bunch of stuff at first appointment. You've got some 25%, some 50s and 90s, excuse me, and some closed deals. Not every 25% deal goes to 50. Not every 50 goes to 90. And here's something else. They don't have to march across the board in order. Sometimes you meet with a person on the first meeting and they go immediately to 50%. And then they go back to 25%, up to 90%, then back to fallback, and then to closed. It doesn't have to go in order, but you want your pipeline board to look as good as it possibly can, and this is what it should look like. You always want to be implementing actions that move your prospects closer to the closed column, because eventually that's where you want them to be. And you always have to make certain you're working with enough real prospects. And when I notice that real is bolded, not people who are jerking you around, not people who won't take meetings with you, you've got to make sure at all times that you're working with enough prospects to close enough business based on your personal closing ratio to be successful and make enough money. And that also means you're probably constantly in need of adding new prospects to the beginning of the pipeline. This is the number one challenge with every coaching client I have, every company I walk into, and it's been the same for the years I've been doing this. Most salespeople are simply not speaking to enough prospects. It's the answer to 50% of sales challenges. Go speak to more prospects. And we can do another program on that sometime if you want to talk about professional prospecting. The other thing to remember is time kills all deals. The longer it takes to get to closed, depending on what you sell, enterprise software has an 18 to 24 month sales cycle, whereas my sales training deals take 8 weeks. But no matter what your sales cycle is, the longer it goes, the worse you typically get. And you also have to know how much time should be spent in each column. So for me, this is not right or wrong, this is just me. Nobody should stay in the 25% column for more than 1 to 3 weeks. It means I've had a first meeting with them, but some of the 50% criteria is missing. So I should be able to get more of that 50% criteria within a 3-week period. Once somebody's at 50%, I'm speaking to the right person with the right proposal, the right dollars, the right time. They've given me a time and date when they'll give me an answer, and I've got a best next action step. There's no reason why they should be there for more than 2 weeks. And then at 90%, contract on desk, maybe just the president has to sign off or the legal's looking at it. That shouldn't take more than 3 weeks either. And if you look at the second of the 3 numbers, the 3, the 2, and the 3, there's my 8-week sales cycle. The prospect management, the pipeline management system is both time and date driven. So if somebody's at 90%, contract on desk, verbal agreement, I bet my paycheck for more than 3 weeks, it's got to move back to 50 because something's wrong. Here's the other thing about the pipeline management system. When you look at it visually, because it is a spreadsheet, by the way, most CRMs can do this internally, but I'm happy to give you the spreadsheet if you want. By looking at the formations, you can tell things about what's going on in your pipeline. So if you take a look at this one, they've got a bunch of stuff at 25%, which means they've met with them, but don't have all the 50% criteria. They've got a couple of deals at 50% and one at 90. That's not a bad formation. This means with a sales cycle of 4 weeks, they're probably going to close a decent amount of business. This one doesn't look quite as good. What could account for this? Maybe somebody went on vacation and they didn't do enough prospecting before they left. So they've got some deals at 50% and got some deals at 90%, but they didn't move enough people from first appointment to 25%. And this also means that let's look at my 8-week sales cycle. If you look at this particular pipeline management board, that means that in 8 weeks, I'm out of business. I've got nothing that can close in 8 weeks because nothing's at 25%. This one is the thing that most salespeople want. This is called weighting the board, weighting, W-E-I-G-H-T, weighting the board to the right. Most salespeople want their board to look like this. Lots and lots of stuff at 90% because that means they're almost closed. But here's the challenge. In 8 weeks, I'm again almost out of business unless I close everything, and I've only got one at 25%. So this is what we think we want, but it's not really. Somebody with this formation, this would be an okay formation for a new salesperson, somebody who has not been in business a long time. They've got nothing at 90%, but they do have a bunch of stuff at 25 and a couple of 50. Not bad as long as it's somebody new. If you're in sales a while and you've got nothing at 90%, that means nothing's closing anytime soon. And guess what? The bills have to be paid at the end of the month, no matter what. This is what we call pending-itis. That means a salesperson is good at getting people about halfway there, but they just can't get them to pull the trigger. This is a salesperson who typically has to invite their manager to come with them to help them close the deal. Not a position you really want to be in unless you have to. And this one's what we call the unrealistic board. Yes, this is truly what we want. Lots of stuff at 25, lots of stuff at 50, lots of stuff at 90, but that's not usually the way it works. This is what we call the ideal formation. It's a triangle with the base at fallback and the point at closed. So you always want to make sure that your board looks as close to this as you possibly can. And I urge salespeople to, one of the last things you do on a Friday, the last thing you always should do is make sure that your calendar is filled up for the next day. But on a Friday, you should also be asking yourself this question: how close am I to the ideal formation? And what actions would I have to take in the next 7 days to make my pipeline look closer to this a week from now? There you go. So this is what it actually looks like. It's a simple spreadsheet. It's got the definitions right at the top. And this does something special for you. So I'm now going to show you a filled-in example. This is not really my pipeline. These are just names and numbers that I put in for you. One of the things that the pipeline management system does is it helps you to forecast. And I've spoken to lots and lots of major corporations. I've worked with companies like Cisco and Siemens and Aramark and Citibank. And I talk typically in large organizations like that. I talk to VPs of sales. One of the questions I always ask is, how accurate is your forecast? I'm just curious about that. How accurate is your forecast? And I can tell you that from long experience, VPs of sales, when you talk to them about their forecast, they'll almost always start shaking their head. If I could get an accurate forecast, Jeff, I'd be a happy man, except I can't. Because here's how it works. The CEO of a company comes to the VP of sales. What are we going to close this week, this month, this quarter, whatever time period they're talking about? Let's say the month. What are we going to close this month? The VP of sales says, I'll get back to you in a day or two. The VP of sales now goes to the sales management team. What are we going to close this month? They say the same thing. I'll get back to you in a day or two. And they go to their salespeople. What are you going to close this month? And the salespeople give them a number. But the number is almost always amazingly optimistic because salespeople think everything's going to close. So the sales manager, being intelligent, takes whatever number the salesperson gives them and cuts 10% off the top. And then they go to the VP sales and they say, here's what my team's going to close. And the VP of sales knows that the sales managers are full of it also. And they take another 10 to 15% off the top. And then they go to the VP goes to the CEO and says, here's what you can expect us to close in the next month. And the CEO knows to take something else off it. And they wind up with an entirely unusable number. Business decisions are based on an accurate forecast. Now, I did not invent this system, by the way, but the guy who did, who I used to work for, we used to get 92% accurate forecasts at our company. 92%. VPs of sales and CEOs would kill for a 92% accurate forecast. Well, this system does it for you because if you take a look, where's my mouse? Here we go. So let's take the value of the deals at 25%. I've got a deal with Chase Bank, Siemens, DEI Management Group, and SAIC, whoever that is. And here are the values of those deals. The way a typical forecast is run is we take the values of all the deals in our pipeline and add them up, and we tell our boss, that's what I'm going to close. But here's the thing. If you've got a deal that has a 25% chance of closing that's worth $225,000, it's not worth $225,000 right now. It's worth 25% of $225,000. So what this board does for you, what this system does for you, here's the total of the deals at 25%, and here's that number times 25%. Because these four deals put together times 25% is really what those deals are worth right now in a forecast. It does the same thing with the deals at 50%. Takes the total at 50% and multiplies by 50%, and the same thing at 90. Then it takes these three weighted numbers and adds them up. And that tells you what you're really going to close in your pipeline. That's the total weighted value of your pipeline. And that's how you get an accurate forecast. Now, what this tells you is here's what you can expect to close in your next average sales cycle. So if this was really my pipeline, which it's not, I certainly wish it was, that would mean that in the next 8 weeks, I'm going to close $2.8 million in business. Well, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if I was really closing that much because I'd be way too busy. I'm not, but this is what you're looking for. An intelligent system, which helps you give an accurate forecast. It helps you decide which deals should I be focused on because I'm going to focus way more time and attention on a $4.3 million deal at 50% than I am a $23,000 deal at 25%. And the most important thing of the pipeline management system is if it's used properly, you're going to walk away with information on how to move a deal forward more quickly. Now, here's the key to that. You have to have somebody that's willing to work with you on this. So when you have a sales manager, your sales manager should be having these conversations with you. But for those of you like me who are solopreneurs, you've got nobody who's looking at the things in your pipeline and giving you advice. So what I would advise is you want to find a partner, somebody who you can be partners with. And once a week, maybe you have lunch together, you each share your screen and your pipeline, and you ask questions of each other about the deals. And what that allows you to do is give advice that the other person couldn't think of on their own. I'll give you an example. I love the idea of the phrase, think outside the box. I love that idea. I just don't think most of us are capable of doing it. So the example I always use is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was an out-of-the-box thinker. I'm pretty much not. I live in a box of my training, my skills, my abilities, my education, everything that's brought me up to this moment is the box that I live on. So if Ellen is my manager and she says, hey, Jeff, I want you to think outside the box on this one, I think she's being unfair. Just like if I'm managing Ellen, it's unfair of me to say, think outside the box. But if I ask the right questions about the deal and Ellen tells me what gives me the answers, I may very well be able to give her ideas on how to move the deal forward that she couldn't think of because she lives in the Ellen box. So I'm going to give you the 3 questions I always ask on a pipeline review. That's what it's called. When you ask questions about somebody's pipeline, it's called a pipeline review. I'm going to ask lots and lots of questions. We don't have time for all of them right now, but the 3 that I'm going to ask every single time are: 1, when did you first start speaking with this prospect about this deal? Because if I'm your manager or if I'm working with you and I know when you first started talking with the prospect about this deal and I know what today's date is, I know whether you're within your average sales cycle or not if you tell me what your average sales cycle is. When you're managing salespeople, you should know that. So I now know one thing: is this happening within your average sales cycle? The second question I'm going to ask is, what happened the last time you spoke with them? And what I want is the 30-second version. I call it a story without hair. I don't want to hear all kinds of details. I just want to give me the quick overview of what happened at the last meeting. And then the most important question, and it's based on getting a best next action step, is what are you going to do at the next meeting? Now, here's the beauty of that. When you tell me what you're going to do at the next meeting, I may say, wow, Denise, that's exactly what I would do. Or I might say, not bad, but did you think of trying this? Here's where I first learned this. When I was being trained to teach this system to other people, and I was watching my mentor, his name is Steve Bookbinder, actually deliver this training live in front of an audience of salespeople who sold advertising. And he called a guy up to the front of the room, and he was running through this guy's board, actually doing a pipeline review live in front of a whole bunch of people. And he's asking this guy about a particular prospect, and he says, what are you going to do next? And the guy tells him what he's going to do next. And Steve, my mentor, said this: what about this? What about if you invite your prospect out to lunch and also invite a happy customer of yours out to lunch and let the happy customer tell your prospect why he likes doing business with you? And I'm sitting on the side scribbling notes and I go, oh my God, I've been in sales 29 years. I never once thought of inviting a happy customer out to lunch with a prospect and letting them say nice things about me. It was outside my box. So the incredible value, the biggest value of using a pipeline management system like this is having somebody to work with you and helping you strategize your sales forward to close in ways you might not have thought of. So you want to check your board every single day to make sure you have enough in each column to support your goals. You want to make sure you're investing your time in the highest probability deals, and you want to work with somebody else, a manager or someone else, who can help you strategize your sales forward. I'm 4 minutes ahead of time, Ellen. This is my contact information. I think I'm coming back at the very end to say a few last words, but I hope this was useful for you. If anybody wants the sheet, the pipeline management sheet, either email Ellen and Ellen will get it to me, or you can email me directly at jeff@jgsalespro.com and just put the title in the subject line, pipeline sheet. I'll send it back to you. Your name is not going on a list. I'm not going to put you in my database. I'm happy to share it with any of you. Also, I run a Facebook group for salespeople or anybody who sells as part of their job called the Sales Pro Network. If you're on Facebook and you'd like to join, every Friday I do a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. It's a place where you can share your success stories, your challenges, and you can get great coaching from people like me, but also my competitors. Adrian Miller is on there. Rob Fishman is on there. We're all happy to help. So if you'd like to join the Sales Pro Network, just come in and ask to join. I'm the administrator. I'll let you right in. And thank you very much for this. I hope this was useful for you so far.
Wow. Jeff Goldberg, thanks so much for today. And I'm just hoping you could close us up by getting some feedback and maybe answering 1 or 2 questions.
Sure, my pleasure. Well, once again, you really had to twist my arm to do something like this. It's my pleasure. Yeah, I'd love to hear, what are your key takeaways? What did you learn today that was really useful? What's the most important thing?
Anybody?
Don't all raise your hand at once, really. Brian.
Yeah, the 50% in the pipeline was an eye opener, like having that middle ground and putting those bullet points on that stage.
Cool. Yeah. When I sell to corporations, inevitably they need, the first thing they need is training for their managers, which I do. The second most important thing is professional prospecting, because if you're not getting enough appointments, you're kind of screwed. But I always tell people, your greatest ROI with me, let me teach your people pipeline management. Greatest ROI.
Well,
Good for you.
Speaking of that, I have a 90% appointment that I actually have to jump and go to. So if Bob Putt were here, he'd be slapping my wrist for leaving early. So Ellen, my apologies. So nice to see you, everybody. I'm fading out.
Close it, Brian. Who else?
Yeah, close it.
Jeff, I think that one thing that you put up there, the ideal formation, that for me was really great to see, because there's just no getting around it. If it doesn't look like that, you can't fake it. Either your pipeline's working and you're filling it, or you're not. So that was really a great slide.
That's a great observation. The thing that I teach managers about pipeline management is your salespeople will lie. Their pipeline board cannot. If you're doing a pipeline management review properly, what you hear is, pardon my French, lots of bullshit. And the smart manager who knows how to do a proper pipeline review will stop people. No, I want the bottom line. No, get right to it. Because we salespeople love to tell stories and we love to BS ourselves. Not that we want to do it on purpose. It's that we have to be optimistic in order to do our jobs, because so many people say no, but that blinds us. So we present that to our management. The smart manager who knows how to properly run an effective review cuts through all the bullshit, goes, no, John, you don't have 17 prospects. No kidding. Well, Diane was there. Is she still here?
Yes.
Diane Capote?
Yep.
I can't see everybody.
Oh, Diane, no, the other one is here.
I actually did this live with Long Island Commercial Bank. A woman went running out of the room crying. No kidding, because I had analyzed her board and she thought she had this full pipeline. She actually had nothing. She had nothing that was really going to close, because a smart manager can ask the right questions to know, are you fooling yourself or not? Ran out of the room crying, which was not my intention. I mean, we're trained to be tough on people so that they know what's real and what's not, but I certainly didn't want that. But yes, John, you're absolutely right. We fool ourselves too, so we don't want to do that. Anybody else? Takeaways from today? Rob?
So, hi, Jeff. Hi, everybody. I really appreciate a topic that you touched on, which is recognizing the framework of what you do every day. So the framework isn't sexy, but it's really important, and recognizing it as an individual is important to the self, because you could go home at the end of the day, or some of us are home all day, but but to just go home and think, hey, I didn't close anything today. But that non-sexy framework is something really important, and acknowledging it for the self is very important.
Yeah, process.
Yeah. So I'd like you to consider, and you probably didn't mean exactly what you said. Just because you didn't close something today does not mean it was not a successful day. And I urge each of you to create, if you're in a part of a company, create a culture, or for yourself, of what I call CAW, C-A-W, which is celebrate all wins. Don't beat yourself up because you didn't close something today. Look, I like closing things as much as the next person. It's one of the greatest feelings in the world, truly. I'm not kidding. Closing a deal, it's as good as sex as far as I'm concerned. I'm not kidding. I know that sounds silly, except it's a great feeling when somebody says, I trust you, and they say, yeah, I'm ready. It's like, yes, baby. You should do that after they get off the phone or the Zoom call with you. Yeah, baby. But it's a great feeling. But there's all kinds of other things that can make the day successful. The key is make it productive. Make sure you're doing the activities each day instead of the things that we tend to do, which is waste time. Me too, by the way.
It's interesting. What I get a kick out of, second to closing my own deals, is having people I introduce actually close a deal.
Say that again, hi?
Outside of closing my own deals, is have people that I introduce to somebody, have them make that connection and close a deal.
Right.
I don't make money out of it, but I put a little, another notch in my belt.
Yeah, it makes you feel really good.
Yeah.
Sale.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Takeaways?
Do you use your ex-wife in all your little stories, Jeff?
Well, my divorce agreement says I can't, but I do sneak it in every now and then.
Mary Graff? Mary?
Yeah. So I would say for me, it's the different, I like structure, right? So it's the difference between being proactive or reactive, right? So being proactive is I've got the framework, like Rob was saying, to use, and it's also measurable. So instead of having stuff in the pipeline, I can see what's in the pipeline and I can prioritize it because it's measurable. To me, I like tools, right? So for me, that was incredibly helpful.
Yeah, we cannot treat every prospect alike because they're not. We tend to do that in sales. They're just not. prospect who's not giving you another appointment, who's not being forthcoming with information, who's not really interested in just wasting your time is exactly that. And I have no time to waste. I don't know about you. I just have zero time to waste. And I am brilliant at wasting time. Brilliant at it. Why do you think I wrote a book and named it Leverage Your Laziness? I'm a great time waster, except I got to make money. When I'm working, I'm working. When I'm playing, I'm playing. So build the brakes in, but focus. It's hard. And I'm with you, Mary. Having that system that tells you exactly where you're at and not BSing yourself, it's gold. Want to take one more, Ellen, or do we need to wrap?
Hey, Jeff. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
still wrestling with that good as sex standard. So,
Look, look.
Is that 50? Is that 90%? Where is that?
Depends.
Wherever you want it to be.
It's not very easy to make me blush, but I think you're doing a good job. Look, a great meal, closing. I mean, there's lots of things that make you feel great. To me, closing it, to me,
It's something
somebody's.
about the win, right?
It's actually not just about the win. For me, it's somebody, because this is the way I take it. Somebody is saying, I trust you, Jeff. And to
Yeah.
me, trust is important. I want to be seen as a person of integrity in the world. And when somebody trusts me to help them grow their sales personally or their organization, it's a high. It really is. Yeah, the money's great. Don't get me wrong. I love getting paid. But that feeling of, wow, somebody, it's like the Sally Field when she won her Oscar. You like me. You really, really like me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really true for me. Let me just share my screen once more before we go. There we go. Whoops. So I actually heard this morning, and it's something I believe. I heard it on, I think it was on MSNBC. One of the people being interviewed was saying, all you can do is the best you can do. And I believe that's true. Every single day, all that you can possibly do is the best you possibly can or not. So you should regularly check in with yourself and ask yourself, am I doing at this moment the thing that's most likely to result in income? Am I truly, if I'm being honest with myself, am I really doing the very best I can, or am I slacking off? If you're honest with yourself and the answer is you're slacking off, it's time to work, because time keeps marching on and your competition is nipping at your heels every second of every day. And here's one more thing I want you to know. There are prospects out there who need what you've got right this second. And you are doing them and yourself a big disservice if you're not reaching out proactively and working hard to help them choose to do business with you. And finally, as Nike says, just do it. Just get out there and go do what you need to do. And if I can help anybody, it's truly my pleasure. And Ellen and everybody, thank you so much. As I always say, I'm a guy who loves the sound of his own voice. There's no doubt about it. There are other things that you can do with your time besides listen to me. And your time and your attention today, I consider a blessing. I hope it was useful for you. And I thank you all very much. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Fantastic. It was great. Thanks so much. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ellen.
Everyone.
Great weekend.
Hope to connect with everyone. There's a lot of us.
Thank you.
Here, have a good one, everybody.